Oh, and Miss Smith.
Okay.
Right? That's it for now.
Yes, Lauren will not be present tonight. She indicated she had a prior commitment, family commitment, and Scott will be present. We just note when he joins. We'll hopefully have him shortly.
Okay.
I actually may have to hop off early, just a heads up. I have a commitment at 6:15, but I'm going to stay on as long as I can.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Megan. This time it is now 5:31 p.m. on Thursday, February 17th. And it's 5:31 p.m. at Thursday, February 17th, 2022. This is the budget hearing for the Board of Finance for the fiscal year 2022 through June 30th, 2023. We have some items on the agenda tonight that we'll go through. I think most people, even though we're doing this through Zoom this year, are familiar with the process. So even though we're not all in the same room, I think what we'll continue to do is address each item in the budget as it appears on the agenda. And as we address that item, we would invite any representatives of that particular commission, board, or department to address the board and to make a brief statement if they like. It's also fine if they don't wish to make a statement, that's fine as well. If they would just indicate that they're not, have no statement to make, that would be fine. And then we will open it up to the members of the board who will ask any questions if there are any, and if there are none, we will move on to the next department. There will not be any votes until the final budget hearing meeting on approximately March 16th of this year. And with that, we'll move forward to item 4157, Harbor Management Commission, Fund 6036. And I should have gotten my page numbers organized.
Page 110.
Thank you.
Or 109.
109. Thank you, Ray. Okay, are there any representatives of the Harbor Management Commission?
Yes. Good evening. My name's Jim Donegan, and I'm the director of Lisbon Landing Marina. A few things just to, since we spoke last a year ago, we had a very strong finish when we closed out our last fiscal year. Overall, our marina enterprise revenue finished up about 37% for the last fiscal year. And the majority of these gains were an 80% increase in marina revenue over the previous year. We've made some improvements. We've implemented an online booking system for transient marina guests. And this year we expanded that program and electronically sent out approximately 300 agreements for kayak and dinghy storage in Milford Harbor and Walnut Beach, and for our moorings in Milford Harbor and the Housatonic River. During last season, the marina and boat ramp welcomed over 2,500 vessels to Milford. We provided over 1,300 nights of dockage and 700 hourly visits for lunch or dinner. The landing also hosted various community events, including the kickoff to summer fireworks, Pirate Day, Oyster Fest, and other events, road races, and fundraisers. Everything's on track. We're looking forward to summer, and we're hoping for an even better year this year. If there are any questions regarding any of the items on the budget, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. Any members have any questions? Mr. Arnold.
Nope, I'm good.
So I just, less on the budget and more of a general question. I see there's quite a bit of work going on at the landing. Is that something that your the Harbor Commission or the marina is taking on, or is that a city project?
That is a project, through the landing, and the city. And that has been facilitated with American Recovery Plan funding.
Okay,
We're working on, the patio and walkway around the harbor, and around the landing. Doing some fixes to the docks on the other side of the harbor, and working to increase our dinghy and kayak rack storage on the other side. So a lot of great things happening.
yeah, it's gonna look great. The mayor also, I think, indicated at some point we're receiving grant funds for dredging of the harbor. Is that going to impact your operations at all? Obviously, in the long term, it'll improve them, but in the short term, we're gonna have any adverse impact from that?
No, it will certainly improve things long term. The harbor and the mooring field has been shoaling in and getting shallower and shallower. This funding, the dredging work itself, will be required to take place off season for environmental reasons. But we'll actually be removing all of the helix anchors that are in the mooring field, and the dredging will take place in both the channel coming and going and the mooring field. And it will really help everything by increasing the depths and getting boats moving again.
Excellent. Would that take place after the end of this season, you anticipate, or next, or do we have a time frame yet?
We don't have a time frame yet. We're still waiting, to see when the funding is released. We are hoping that it could take place this coming winter, but it's too early to tell.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's nothing further, we can move on to the, thank you. Move on to the finance department.
Page 37. Oh,
Yep.
page 37.
Mr. Chairman, while the finance department is preparing, just a quick follow-up to something that Jim Donegan had mentioned. We are doing several projects paid for through the ARPA money. There was a treasury report due at the end of January, where we submitted an updated ARPA plan for any of the Board of Finance members who want to see Milford's projects. We received approximately $29 million. Well, we received the first installment of approximately $14.5 million, and we'll receive the second half sometime in May. But we're planning for approximately $29 million worth of projects. The Board of Ed got an additional installment, but all of those projects, all of those dollars will be listed under that ARPA plan, that there's a working group making sure that the dollars are spent appropriately. And that's all on the city website. If anyone from the Board of Finance wants to take a look at those projects, again, it's a pretty comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was not aware of that. I'll certainly take a look. Appreciate it. Okay, finance department.
Thank you, Chairman Lima. This is Peter Eridisi, Finance Director. And we also have City Assessor Marcus Eric in the meeting, as well as Tax Collector Corey Gumberwitz. So if you have questions for the assessor or the tax collector, they are here as well, joining me. The Finance Department as a whole, all of our divisions are pleased to report another great year, dealing with a variety of tasks and issues and challenges, along with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And as the mayor alluded to, the ARPA funding and also the Coronavirus Relief Fund Act has kept many of our city departments busy with allocating these resources. And for us, in terms of the audit, We were able to complete our fiscal year 21 audit on time, and that was posted to the finance webpage. And now we are trying to wrap up the federal single audit. We have taken additional time because we are waiting for the final rule from the US Treasury on the ARPA funding. So our independent auditors are currently working on finishing the federal audit and hope to complete that in the next month or so. On the whole, the finance department is also contending with an upcoming upgrade to the Munis financial system. And this is a major version change that is scheduled to be installed in March. So we are currently testing that new version. And I just sent a memo out to all the city departments to make them aware and to get them to go into the test database to start exploring the major enhancements that were done to Munis. We all respectfully ask that you review and hopefully approve the finance department budget as stated, and I'll now open it up to any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Any
Mr.
questions?
Chairman, I have a couple.
Yes, sir.
With the software, I'm not seeing that in the finance side. Is it actually covered on MIS?
It's covered in MIS. Yes, when we get to the IT budget, it is in the existing account for the annual cost for Munis. Yes.
Okay, cool. And Mr. Mayor, you had talked about how, with the reassessment, there's going to be possibly more challenges. Is that covered in here, or is that a different department?
Through you, state law requires that every 5 years we do a new reevaluation. Marcus and his team are in charge of that. They have completed the first portion of the reval, which is, setting the grand list and all of that. However, the second phase is folks coming to appeal assessments, and people are supposed to appeal the assessment by this year, March 18th. We mentioned that last night. However, they can appeal their assessment really any year. It just means that they only get the benefit of that previous fiscal year as opposed to all 5 fiscal years that remain in this 5-year reval. So Marcus can give you a little bit more information about that. He is online this evening with us. But overall, we grew the grand list by about $1.2 billion is anticipated. Marcus has not formally signed the grand list as of yet, but that's the estimated amount that we're planning to increase it by based on all the information that we have. There's some properties that increased substantially, some properties that decreased, some properties that stayed the same, but overall there was an increase, especially with waterfront properties, especially with properties in certain neighborhoods. There was more of an increase than some of the retail commercial, for example. So it's a little bit all over the place, but overall there was an increase to the tune of about $1.2 billion. Obviously, some of that increase was because of new construction and new developments, but the vast majority was just the rebalancing of our tax base.
Okay, and that the cost of possibly the extra work is covered in this?
So the assessor's office, there is a reserve account that's associated with that every year we funnel money through the Board of Finance's approvals and the Board of Alderman approvals into that reserve account. So when there's expenses like litigation costs associated with appeals to assessments, or there's additional costs associated with the actual reevaluation, bringing on new people, we have that covered. So we do have a reserve account for that department that we utilize mostly because of the reval every 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Peter, Mr. Mayor, is that the operational expense revaluation operations, the 45,000, is that what goes into the reserve account if it's not used in a particular year?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. That is the annual funding of that reserve account.
Thank you. Anything further for the finance department? Okay, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. MIS, the next page 39.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the board, Adam Heller, our IT manager, had to travel this evening, so he is unavailable. But the mayor and I are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Peter.
And I'll highlight, as Mr. Arnold had mentioned or asked earlier, the software and maintenance account on page 39. That is the account that where the annual cost for Munis is charged to. And it also includes costs for other city software programs as well, such as Municity, et cetera.
Now, in the last year or two, did we add a position in this department or just reclassify a position?
I believe we reclassified a position. Yes, it was a GIS position that was reclassified to an IT support specialist. And we did hire a new person to join the IT support group, and he started last year.
Okay, so we're fully staffed in that department at this point?
Yes, we are fully staffed.
You're not. All right. Thank you. I have nothing further.
I'm good.
Thank you. Page 17, Mayor's Office.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it is again a relatively status quo budget. I am happy to answer any questions about the 22-23 Mayor's Department or any other questions involving the city, just because the Mayor's Office touches just about all aspects of this budget.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Right. And also, if there's anything on general expense on page 19, I think that's falls within the mayor's purview as well.
Kind of status quo. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Anything on general expense, page 19? If not, we'll move on to golf course fund, which brings us, I think, back to the back of the book again. Page 112. Is there anyone here from the golf course commission?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay now? It's Dan Worrell.
Oh, yes, Dan, how are you? Welcome.
Good, very good. I'm representing the Golf Commission. I'm the financial advisor for the Golf Commission. Just a brief overview of the golf course. Last year was a spectacular year for the golf course. We've had an increase of rounds, an increase of use of electric carts, and an overall increase of use of pull carts. Those are the highest totals we had, I think, in the last 7 years. So the commission is very excited for the upcoming year. We've done 2 major projects. One is still going on. That's the redoing of all the sand traps. They dug all the sand traps out, put a new drainage system, New sand will be going in, so they'll be looking very good. Also, we eliminated some of the dead trees on the golf course and some of the hazardous limbs and accessories that go along with the tree that were causing a problem. As far as our budget goes, it's an increase over last year's budget. Roughly, the city took in $120,000 based on the golf course, and that's a result of contractual payments, cart revenues, and some of the money goes into the open space. All the accounts are basically the same. If you look at the water service, it's been decreased by $10,000. There's an agreement with the city and the management company. We were able to decrease that by $10,000. The depreciation expense went up $1,000. The maintenance replacement fund went up $9,000. And there's a new line item called project accounts that has an amount of $15,000 in it. And I like to thank Peter on this because he helped me go over this, and we adjusted some of the accounts to make it more feasible for the golf course. So I'll be happy to answer any questions from anybody.
Thank you, Dan. Just before we get with any questions, just note that Scott Moulton has joined us. And welcome. And any questions? Ray, Mr. Arnold, any questions?
Just on the maintenance replacement fund, it went up by the 9,000. Is there a plan behind that? Like, or, yeah.
Well, what that covers, Ray, is any type of cart repairs, basically anything that irrigation system, if we don't have enough in the water account. It's just a variety of different things, whether we need topsoil, whether we got to do deep irrigation in the greens, which is an expensive project. We have to get different equipment in, because a lot of those greens basically were built kind of on sand. So what we have to do, we have to interject iron deep down into the greens to make them turn green and recover. So we just don't want to be short on that account. That's the major account we take a lot of the money out of for repairs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the golf course? Well, hopefully it'll be another successful season. I'm sure it will be. And good luck. Thanks for all your hard work with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Speaking of hard work, fire department, page 51.
Good evening. You hear me okay, Brian? How are you?
Yes, how are you, Chief?
Excellent. I have no comments at this time. I do have a brand new assistant chief that was just newly appointed, and bringing him into the fold, just kind of, it's Chris Wiggs Norris.
Welcome.
He's here. He may have a comment or two. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer any that you may have. And we have, I think, the next 4 accounts as well on the agenda there.
Yes.
And well, the only comment, I believe that they're all flat. They stayed pretty much as a flat budget for this fiscal year.
Thank you, Chief Ito. I mean, it's an extensive budget for the fire department, but it's a lot of work. How is your staffing at this point?
All right, so that's an excellent question. That'll get us in a discussion at the end of this year. We're down 17 personnel right now, and 2 additional that are out long-term with broken legs. So there's 19 positions 17 are vacancies, with a few more retirements coming up in this July. Having said that, we couldn't, because of the COVID in this 2 years that we're in, we couldn't test. We couldn't run an agility test, and we didn't have the academy. The schools were shut down for training. So it really prolonged our hiring process and created these vacancies, and the vacancies jumped up on our overtime,
Okay.
which will again this year too. We do currently, though, we just sent 8 recruits and they started last Monday to the fire academy. So we cut that in half. But I do anticipate a few more in July. So I'm not going to say I'll be at 17, but I'll probably be around 12, because we didn't fill all 17. Like I said, 8 right now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're currently running a test.
Hi, Chief Ito, it's Scott Moulton. How are you? How many are budgeted in the budget here? How many, like, are we accounting for those down, let's say, 10, or are we assuming those positions are full?
Yeah, we're assuming they're full. The budget is status quo with the number
Gotcha.
of personnel.
And I know you've explained this to me ad nauseum, so I apologize for the follow-up question on vacation and relief. Do you mind just clarifying that again for me? I always forget, because there's always a big swing in what's requested and what's budgeted, and I know it's somewhat of a placeholder, if I recall.
Yeah, that is basically the overtime account. So when the personnel are out injured, or those 17 vacancies, when you fill that spot, that's where the money comes from.
Gotcha. Okay.
Vacation relief is also their vacation. So when they're off, we cover, backfill that seat, and that comes out of that account as well.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing further, we'll move on to emergency management. We can certainly go back to fire department if there's any follow-up questions. But emergency management, page 58.
That one too stayed flat as well. And you'll see a little decrease there. And that's due, if you look at the line for MIS, we were just talking about, Peter was just talking about our software as well as goes through the MIS department. So that's where that difference is. Somehow we must have kept that in last year's budget, because I believe it's 2 or 3 years ago that we removed all those accounts and gave it to MIS.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And again, we'll cover CMed as well on page 88, but that's a grant. And then lighting hydrants.
And those stayed the same. Well, we did get the quote for CMA, which stayed the same. The lights in the hydrants, I sent over some information to Peter this week from the water company. But again, those are just the placeholders. It's just for paying the bills is what I usually say with those.
Right.
It was charged with those. And Peter would know more, but I believe they stayed flat as well.
And Chief, we just explain CMed, just because we do have a new board member this year.
Yes, CMed, that's Coordinated Medical Emergency Dispatch. That's what it stands for. It's a law where our ambulances are out on the road and you have to make a patch to the hospital. We'll say Yale or Milford. And when you make that radio patch, it needs to go through CMed. And that's what it is.
What with hydrant installation, $6,000? How much is that? Is that one hydrant? What's it typically cost to install a hydrant?
That's typically one, maybe two we can get out, and it's if it's in an area that the fire department deems that we should have a hydrant. Every once in a while, there are some neighborhoods that we think that we should have a hydrant. Ordinance in town, which was done years ago, is nice, is that any new construction 400 feet or more needs a hydrant. So that kind of covers us when the contractors are building their neighborhoods and stuff, they're putting the hydrants in. And we've done a couple of hydrants, and it was after the Erna Avenue fire years ago where we needed an additional hydrant and new water main work on Erna Avenue. And that was taken out of that.
Thank you.
I forgot about that fire. That's gotta be 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Chief Vito. Anything further? If not?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, page 34, open space.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. So this past year was an amazing year for open space and sustainability within the city of Milford. We were recognized by Sustainable CT at their highest level of certification, which is silver. Received that last fall. It's a 3-year certification for the city, recognizing all of the efforts that we do. We had a very successful Earth Day tree giveaway event. We gave away 500 mature trees for Milford residents to plant in their yards. It was praised on so many levels. So it's something that we were actually going to be returning for this year's Earth Day celebration at the end of April. We've led numerous volunteer groups for cleanups, for trail maintenance. People are really excited to take in, just get outdoors and experience, all of our open space areas. I was just received a grant from DEP to take and do a tree inventory and health assessment of all the 650 city arboretum trees, as well as create an online GIS-based community engagement map of the trees to show all the ecological benefits. And really, I've been trying to promote both digitally and, in person, all of the open space that the city has and what we have to offer. So that's always something that will continue. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any members of the board?
Regular wages, are those contractual increase? It's about a 13% jump from projected in the budget. Is there explanation for the higher regular wage?
Mr. Chairman, there are going to be some increases for those that follow certain union contracts. So for I know that we did a U2 that followed the MSA contract, and whatever the MSA settled. So there's 2 big contracts that settled this past summer, MSA and firefighters. And there are several different city employees that are non-rep, that are not part of a collective bargaining unit, that whenever MSA settles, the same percentages for which it settles, those city employees that are non-rep follow that exact same percentage. And because it was several years in the making, it means that the money was actually in the salary reserve account, which is in the back of the book. And so it's not just a 2% or a 2.25% increase. It's a 2.25% increase compounded over several different years. So it's a 7.5% or 7.75% increase all at once. And there's several of those positions where it's a big jump. And if there's a step involved, again, I'm not talking about a specific employee, but I'm talking about non-reps in general, where there may be a step and that 3-year uptick for the salaries, because it was a 3-year period where the employee got yeah, a 2, 2 and a quarter, 2 and a quarter, all at once.
Thank you, Mayor, for that clarity, because that was one consistency I thought I saw through quite a few of these budgets where there were, somewhat anomalies where there were just spikes in wages. So thank you for that clarity. That answers a lot of my questions.
It may have been two factors. It may have been a step increase for some of the employees, but the more significant one, it was the 2% increase over 3 or 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is more of a question back for open space and maybe public works as well, but we're lucky to have as much open space as we do in this community, but I guess unfortunately with that much space, maintenance problems and everything else, particularly when you walk along rivers or harbors, there seems to be quite a bit of, unfortunately, sign of the times, plastic pollution and other pollution. Is there any program in place to try to address that cleanup or anything along those lines?
Yes, actually, we're constantly taking in, having volunteer groups reach out to us that want to take in, help do cleanups. I'm actually just working with a group from Sacred Heart University that's going to be coming and doing a cleanup as well. Our scout troops take in regularly, do it. Pack 7 will do around the harbor very often. And, it's a continued effort, as you know. Anytime that you clean something up, the next day, there'll be litter again. Unfortunately, litter is on every part of this planet. So it's an ongoing effort, between the city and volunteer groups.
Yeah, I just noticed when, there seems to be some areas in particular, like along the shoreline of Wilcox Park, and then, over by the Gulf Street Bridge over there can be, I know the mayor lives over there, so maybe it's not properly disposing his trash, but unfortunately, in any event, it's good to hear that there are some programs because we're lucky to have those resources, and I'm sure it's a constant battle to keep them clean. So thank you.
I do know that Scott Moulton and the Devon Rotary have a planned cleanup for Gulf Beach on April 9th. If you want to sign up, please.
I guess I'm going to have to sign up now, aren't I?
Yeah.
Hey, you asked the question, Brian, Don't
Yeah,
ask
give me the
questions.
information. I'll come over. Thank you. Anything else for open space? Okay, I think that leads on to Public Works. Page 63.
Is this another one of the, because I know that one of my questions was going to be around the regular wages. Is this another one that was subject to the MSA?
So the non-rep positions in the Public Works office they all follow MSA.
Okay.
Okay. And again, we'll sort of treat these as a grouping, but Highway and Parks Department, page 65. I saw Steve Johnson here earlier. I don't know if Mr. Saley's here or not, but oh, there you are, Chris.
I keep it quiet, Brian. I would just like to listen to you guys.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to let you off that easy.
I was going to ask how the Devon Rotary is doing Gulf Beach instead of Walnut Beach, but I didn't want to throw stones on a day like today.
Walnut
Scott,
Beach
you
is
wanna-
big.
It's a Long Beach.
Yeah.
We may get there.
They really want to invade the Milford Rotary territory, so that's showing the flag.
I'm sure it is. So as you all can see, it's an extremely flat budget. I think actually there's a small reduction in the total expenditures throughout all the departments, except for the cost of living that the mayor was speaking about. But the actual materials and the other items that we purchase.
Okay. Cleanups. Again, I say it every year, but I do think, our parks have never looked good, really, and the beaches and the parks really, I think they all are in great shape and are a real asset to the community, and they're it's a good job. So keep
I
it up.
appreciate that, Brian. This is where I give a lot of credit to the mayor. I mean, he's funded a lot of these projects, especially down at French Drive and Jonathan Law and Orange Ave and the programs that Steve Johnson did down at the boardwalk at the Beaverbrook that is well used.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, I don't know if you guys have all had the opportunity to walk it.
I have.
And just, I mean, really, the open space in the city is tremendous. There's a lot of activity, and you do bring up a good point. We do have a lot of litter, a lot of plastic. I would like to see us get more volunteers to help, and maybe through the Boy Scouts. I know Jeremy's doing that, but actually getting more people involved. There's a tremendous amount of litter getting into our water system, I'll call it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a constant battle, but.
Chris, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, please, go ahead, Scott.
Ice control, sand. I mean, it seems like you're pretty on track for budget, and it seems pretty consistent for next year too. Been a
So
good
just
year,
so you
bad
know,
year. I mean, it seems.
we have that pretty much the same number every year, but we also use town aid that we get from the state to offset if it's a heavier year for snowplow, salt, sand. Well, we don't use sand anymore, so we use salt exclusively, and it makes a big difference in regards to the cleanup in the springtime. I was actually in Waterbury about a week and a half ago, and they still use sand, and the amount of debris in the gutter line, I mean, it just adds a lot more work. We transitioned a number of years ago away from sand, and we use exclusively salt. We still do have some sand that we give away sometimes that people want, because in the wintertime, some people want it for their driveways. We give away salt also, so.
Great.
How is your staffing throughout your departments?
Right now, we're down about 21 employees, I think is the number, somewhere in that ballpark.
Throughout the public works areas?
Throughout public works, building maintenance, custodians has been a struggle to fill. I think truck drivers is one of those issues that I think the city offers some pretty fair compensation, but the new world is people just want mobility, and they're not looking at the long range, which is the benefits that the city offers. So it's been a struggle. There's no two ways about it. And in this past 2 years, this is one of the things I talked about at the Board of Aldermen subcommittee is we haven't had the opportunity to bring in a lot of seasonal people because of COVID. So we were taking a lot of our skilled guys to help cut grass, which was a little frustrating, but we just couldn't find any of the young kids that were available because of COVID. We had some issues with trying to keep people socially distant. So it was definitely a challenge.
Okay. Hopefully we're be less of a challenge this year, hopefully. But okay, building maintenance, page 69.
So we're gonna in building maintenance, we've had a transition. We had a long-term employee, Sly Mora, who did a tremendous job for 20 years. He retired recently, and we've had a promotion from within, Sean Bennett, who's, I believe, almost a 10-year employee with the city, taking over the superintendent's position. So we've had some transition in that, and looking forward to Sean taking over and taking the department over and running it.
Excellent. What are you seeing with heating fuel costs? Hopefully they stay stable, but have you seen an increase already? Are we?
Oh yeah.
Budget impacts?
You guys didn't get into Parks and Highway, but the fuel diesel has definitely, I mean, we were very lucky the last few years with the wholesale costs that the mayor and Fred Bialka had negotiated. Obviously, we don't pay taxes to the city, so we're substantially lower than the prevailing, which I'll call the outside rate, but it's definitely spiked up. And I should have that number, but I think it's closer to you guys will think it's low, but it's closer to $3 and a little over $3 for diesel. But 2 years ago, we were under $2 a gallon. And the home heating oils is in that same vein. The good news is we recently put in 4 new high efficiency boilers at PD, which is one of our bigger buildings. So that will hopefully show us some savings. You're going to see, even though we have the microgrid in effect, which is taking care of Parsons, the senior center, City Hall, and Harborside, the electrical costs I've seen have gone up substantially, with T&D being a big issue, transportation and distribution. Generation, we have a locked in rate, but it's going to be a struggle, I think.
How long is that generation rate locked in for?
I'd have to ask the mayor or Peter. I think it's 2 years.
And refresh my memory, Chris, building maintenance, does that also cover the schools, all the schools?
No, it's one of the things that we take care of the 14 buildings and other items like bathrooms, things like that go through the city. The schools have their own department that run their building maintenance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, if people want to go back to the various departments, they can, but we'll move on to engineering on page 72.
And I would like to highlight in engineering, we just hired a gentleman to fill one of the vacant positions. He's done a very nice job, but I'd like to just mention Beverly Hayes. She's our admin in that department and does a tremendous job. She really wears many, many hats, and outstanding employee, 20-something year employee of the city.
She is. I've had dealings with her in the past, and you're lucky to have her. She came over from the health department. Isn't that what she recently was? Or was she?
She, you know what? It's funny. I asked her that today, but she said she started at planning and zoning, but
Yeah,
I
she
thought
started at
it was the health also.
I knew she was at planning and zoning. That's where I had most of my contact with her. I thought she went over to health department for a couple of years though. But
Yeah.
okay. Engineering, general garage, page 74.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, can take your question. How the staffing? Like, are you all, for all the positions that you have listed, do you have employees? Or your mechanics? Or
We're short. I believe it's one mechanic right now. And we also have another mechanic that's been out with a workplace injury. He was test driving a motorcycle and got cut off by a car, and has been a tremendous asset to the city, but he's been out for a number of months now. So we are struggling in that department a little bit. And again, same thing across the board with other areas. It's very challenging to find qualified people in that skill set right now.
thank you.
Thank you. Solid waste, page 76. Well, I must say, I still can't get over the reduction in the solid waste labor, truck driver, personnel. It used to be 2 or 3 times that, if I recall correctly, so.
There's been a lot of streamlining. We've also seen some savings with the fuel cell that we have down at the Beaverbrook plant, which is off of Deerwood Ave. That's been running for, I believe, almost 3 years now. And it really is. We have virtual net metering. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with it. The gist of it is we produce more than is used there, and we offset the costs of other locations. which are two of our big pump stations, West Ave and Gulf Pond, also the Housatonic plant. And it's been a tremendous savings. It's a PPA, power purchase agreement, and we're under 8 cents a kilowatt. That's a 20-year commitment. So it's been very, very, very beneficial for the city.
It's one of the areas that we used to offset for the virtual net metering is Foreign High School. Have you and Peter ever reconciled that with the Board of Ed and the operations budget for Milford Public Schools?
I'll let Steve's here, but Mike Sassy was the company that's doing that. We've got our numbers together, and the Board of Ed has put money to the side for us. So yes, we'll be doing that shortly. We haven't completed the transaction, but it's pretty much finalized.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, that would be. So I see the city waste removal costs, just tipping fees are pretty stable. Do you expect that to be a realistic number for this year?
I hope. We changed some of the processing down there. So our tonnage actually is going to go up a little bit. The savings is we're no longer bringing it. For about a year, we delivered it to Pennsylvania, which was a very costly endeavor. Through the processing improvements that Lindsay King, our superintendent of wastewater, did, we ended up getting a higher quality sludge. I know it sounds silly, but less water in it. And we're able now to bring it back up to Waterbury where they incinerate it. So there's been some costs, but those costs, when I think I first started, were closer to, $80, $79 a ton. There's been some substantial increase in that cost over the last 7-8 years.
Hey, Chris, I think the question was on our sanitation solid waste.
Yes,
not the-
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Chris is all the way going to, he's going to liquid waste. Solid waste.
He's moving ahead. He's one step ahead.
Thank you, Steve. I solid waste. Yeah, we're solid waste right now. The cost to dump it at Wheelabrator in Bridgeport is $65.75 a ton. We also, our transportation costs, we have a set fee with our hauler. It depends on how many tons, but it's a set fee per load. So we've saved some money there. We anticipate, again, a cost of living on that. Our recycling costs, which were as high as $80 a ton, as the mayor has probably spoken to a few times. A few years ago, we were getting $20 a ton. Last year, it was as high as $80. Right now, we're in the $35, $36 a ton range that we're paying. So commodities have adjusted a little bit, but it's still a tremendous difference than what we use. We go through about 4,600 tons of recycling a year. And the biggest commodity, the most profitable commodity is cardboard. I'd like to see us get a better product and do a little bit more better enforcement with recycling. I don't know, really not the most exciting thing, but we do still have a lot of people that put contaminants. I think 23 or 24% of the amount of recycling that gets in a can is what we call residual. It isn't useful. It's trash. So I would hope we could probably educate and get a better product, and that will in turn hopefully save some money in that regard.
Thank you. Anybody further on solid waste?
Just related, Mr. Mayor, a couple of weeks ago, you were saying glass in the recycling stream works against it. Is that a true statement?
I think we were talking about glass and how probably about by volume about 25% and by weight about 30% of our overall recycling is attributable to glass. And it is something that used to be valuable, but now it is not. And in fact, when it gets dumped into the back of a compactor, it breaks up, and all those glass particles really do contaminate other more valuable products. Chris mentioned cardboard. When it breaks up, it gets onto the cardboard and it sticks. It makes the cardboard less valuable. And glass right now, since 2017, has been basically worthless because it was all getting recycled in China. China cut off the stream. There are things now that are happening in the United States, which I think Chris talked about last time. We now have a glass recycling facility right in Beacon Falls. And it's an aggregate for like concrete mix and asphalt. Is it concrete or asphalt? But it's an additive for that. And hopefully, once that gets online, local glass recycling will have an uptick, but we want to carve it out of the single stream recycling because it contaminates the rest. We'd rather have it as a separate recyclable product that folks can dispose of at the transfer station or through some other type of, receptacles that we place around town, as opposed to having them be part of our single stream process that we collect at the curb.
Is there some plan in place or some future plan?
So right now, if we carve off anything from the list that DEEP requires that we include, we have to get permission from the state, from the DEP, to have our residents not throw a particular product that is on their single stream list. Until that happens, we have to continue to collect all of those recyclable products that are part of the DEEP list. There are some pilot projects that DEEP is working on with certain municipalities. We are looking into that to see if we can become a pilot town where we ask our residents to throw their glass somewhere else as opposed to in their normal toter or recycling bin.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go to wastewater, page 102, maybe 101. Just to follow up on your statement earlier, Chris, about the electricity, I mean, we had budgeted last year 1.2 million and we're down to 900,000. Is that what you were referring to earlier?
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Anything else on wastewater? Sewer Commission, page 100. 99 and 100, well, 98. 98 through 100. Peter, is this correct on debt service for on page 98? Or more in the historical data section as opposed to this year's, because
So
historical
Brian,
data has it only at 181,000 in the budget. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'll just remind the board, last year we had, excuse me, refunded the Clean Water Fund low interest loans. Those were refunded and paid off and replaced with general obligation bonds at an even lower rate. And that saved the city a significant amount of money. And a big portion of the savings was applied to the fiscal year 22 budget, the current year we're in now. And that's why there was that drop of about $1 million to 648,000. And now it's going back up, to normal, if you will. But the good news is that the remaining term for this portion of bonds that replace the clean water funds is much shorter. So we'll be paying off that portion related to clean water, quote unquote, in a shorter period of time. I think it's roughly about 6 to 7 years left. And if we had stayed with the Clean Water Fund loans, the outstanding term would have been longer than that.
Does that go back to when we spent the $100 million on the new sewer plant or whatever it was, those bonds?
Yes, that was a big part of it, yes.
Okay. Anything further? Okay, public debt service. Page 78. Page 78, I think, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. 78.
Peter, do these projections, they don't include the bonding we just did a few weeks back, does it?
It does, yes. This budget for 23 includes the results of the debt we just issued at the beginning of November 2021. Yes, the most recent issue.
Not monies that we authorized at the last Board of Finance meeting, but bonding that was issued back in November.
Correct, yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Yep. That's what I was asking. Thank you.
And I'll just highlight to the board, it is an increase, but the increase was offset by a refunding that we had done. And that led to savings in this budget for 2023 of about $500,000. So the overall number for debt service, school, and public would have been $500,000 higher if not for that recent refunding that we did last year.
Thank you, Peter. School debt service, page 93. It's also also on page 93, education employee benefits. Non-teaching. Back to page 84, employee benefits, general.
Mr. Chairman, on this page, I'd just like to highlight and commend the mayor and the city. In this pension line item, the 14 million, that is 100% funding of the annual employer determined contribution. So that's definitely a positive thing for the city.
And that's for the pension, fire, police, general, 14 million?
Yes, the pension, fire, police, general, 14 million.
Yes, that's excellent. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I do have a question about the self-insurance contribution. Obviously, it's a significant increase. Is there any particular reason? Is it paid claims based or is it market or both?
So I mentioned it the other night, but this coupled with the Board of Education's portion, which is under the city budget, equates to about an $11 million increase, just a huge jump from last year. And, we have a consultant that we utilize to give us projections. And what's driving this number up so much is utilization. It's actually claims being made by the 5,000 plus people that we pay for insurance. This is just a huge 20 to 25% of our budget is our health insurance. And this is just a huge uptick from last year. And from what we've been told from our insurance consultant, it is being driven by utilization. Peter can give some more information, but I know that there was a period where people were not getting elective surgeries because of the pandemic, and perhaps it was that in addition to several other factors, but it is a big jump that's driving this budget that we need to account for. So Peter, do you have anything else?
Yes, I do have a few comments to also expand on that. In discussing this with our healthcare consultants, they've seen this in other cities and towns as well, that for some reason, the pandemic is leading to trending to higher claims running month to month in the current year we're in now. And it's projected into this new year that we are trying to budget for. So utilization is a big, factor in the increase. And I'll also add that the city has done a great thing, and also the Board of Education, in the initiative of transitioning employees to the health savings account product, which over the long term is hopefully going to save the city money over time. And the program, when it first started, the contribution amounts were lower because it was in its infancy. And we didn't budget for those per se directly in this calculation. We were able to cover it through savings in the claims expense, and we've had a number of good years, and that helped cover the HSA contributions. But over the past couple of years, it's become necessary, or at least I've seen the need to budget as much as we can to cover those contributions. And so in this budget, it's about 1.6 million, 1.3 for the Board of Ed contributions to the health savings accounts, and about 300,000 for the city. That is what we're projecting. It could be a little bit more than that, but it's best practice that we budget for that, obviously, because we don't have enough savings in the claims expense to cover it. So that's part of the 11 million increase, that 1.6 for health savings account employer contributions to those accounts for the employees.
Are there any provisions, Peter, in the any of the COVID relief funding that's been granted? Are you allowed to use some of that to offset increased medical premiums due to COVID?
We've talked about that. It may be possible, but what I worry about, or at least it is of a concern or something to think about, is that just hypothetically, if a significant portion was covered through federal relief funds, it also could create a fiscal cliff, if you will. So say we have $1 million that could be covered hypothetically through the grant funding, you'd have to make up for that million once the grant money runs out. So that's just something to consider. But we have explored that. But what we found when I had Anthem look at the COVID-related cost was that in terms of the testing and those expenses related to that, it wasn't as large a number as we anticipated. Most of the utilization that may be connected to the pandemic was not all COVID testing and directly COVID related, but consequential expenses as a result for other reasons.
So
Understood. Thank you.
Peter mentioned that over time, switching to the high deductible insurance plan is going to be a cost savings. But when we initially roll it out to the various unions, and which we have been, there is an upfront cost, because when we're negotiating with the different collective bargaining units, we try to incentivize those unions to accept this new program, either for new employees or for existing employees that are going to switch from a PPO plan to the high deductible. And so we offer $1,000 or $2,000 for the HSA to pay up a percentage of their premium, depending on whether they are a single employee or an employee with a family plan. We offer a percentage of the premium to be paid as an incentive for them to switch over. And the cost of funding those HSAs is an upfront cost that we have to bear now, but hopefully will not into the future, because we've only promised it for transitioning employees, switching over from the PPO to the high deductible.
Thank
I
you.
don't know
Where
if that
does,
makes sense.
thank you. Does that show up? I was looking for a line item on that. Is that anywhere in the under employee benefits, or is it under health insurance contribution, or is it?
Through you, to Mr. Chairman, the HSA contribution is part of that self-insurance contribution.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I misunderstood that. Okay. Thank you. Anything further on employee benefits? If not, insurance and bonds, page 85. Also on page 85, claims and refunds. Page 86, benefit and salary reserve, which I see has been a decrease with, I assume because there's fewer negotiations ongoing at this point.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it was adjusted for those contracts that were settled, fire, non-rep MSA, and MSA. And also nurses. I believe nurses may have settled as well. It had gone before the Board of Aldermen at their February meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Excellent. Okay, we're wrapping up here. Page 93, education audit. And page 94, education, health insurance contribution, which double backs to what the mayor said a moment ago, I think, about the total increase in costs. This is the additional 6,000 right here. Well, 6 million, excuse me. Okay, we covered a lot of ground today. Does anybody have any questions? Any follow-ups?
I was late, so I apologize. I'd really like the mayor's office and finance department to go back over there, and I hope you guys really beat them up. I'll listen to the playback, I guess.
We did. I did notice when you came in on the golf course commission, so I was surprised you didn't get here for the harbor commission. But that, you got one of your vices covered.
I hit a lot of balls into the water, so that probably would have been served two purposes.
Exactly. Okay. If there's nothing further, for this evening. We will recess until Tuesday, 2/22/22.
Do you need a motion for that, Chairman? I forget.
Yes, please. There's a motion.
I'll make a
made by-
motion that we recess until Tuesday, the 22nd, 5:30.
The motion
I
made.
second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ray. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr.
Opposed?
Chair, oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Well, excellent. We're recessed until the motion carries unanimously, and we're recessed until Tuesday, the 22nd. Peter, did you have a-
Chairman, just a heads up to the board, for Tuesday, the elections and registrar of voters, they've requested to be moved to the top of the list because of a prior commitment. So if it please the board, we should plan to have elections and registrar first before HR.
Yeah, I think the board would be happy to accommodate that.
Thank you.
Should not be an issue. Excellent. Anything further?
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for your,
Take care.
Night all. Good to see
Thank you.
everybody. Take care.
yeah, take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye-bye.